Good afternoon. It's great to join you all here today. I'm Councillor Louise Gittins. I'm Chair of the Local Government Association and the proud leader of Cheshire West and Chester Council. Local government is the backbone of our country. Our dedicated councillors and officers make a difference in their communities, working hard every day to improve the lives of their residents and building thriving places. As chair of the LGA, I have seen firsthand the work of our councils at the very heart of local decision-making and delivery. They are key to solving our biggest national challenges and critical in promoting sustainable local economic growth. We have continued delivering despite the financial challenges that we've faced. Here in Leeds, for example, the council, working with partners, have developed the pioneering Leeds Flood Alleviation Scheme, protecting more than 4,000 homes and over 1,000 businesses along the River Aire catchment in Leeds and neighbouring communities. And this project will help protect more than 33,000 jobs in Leeds alone. Essex County Council and Chelmsford City Council are partnering with Network Rail to build Bewley Park Station in Chelmsford. This new station is part of a wider regeneration scheme with new road infrastructure and up to 14,000 new homes. In my own council of Cheshire West and Chester, we have established Origin in Ellesmere Port. It's set to be the first decarbonised industrial zone in the world and home to HyNet, who recently received £5 billion from government to develop low carbon and green energy. Origin is the home of over 1,000 businesses and 24,000 jobs, driving forward the green revolution and leading the race to net zero in the northwest. Even when councils come together to form combined authorities, we must remember that councillors are the conveners and leaders of their local places, bringing together local partners to tackle complex challenges. They are uniquely placed to bridge gaps, coordinate efforts, and deliver results that no single agency can achieve alone. That is why the LGA has been clear that local leaders should have more of a say in the decisions and work of other public sector organisations in their places. However, our ability to deliver our priorities has been diminished by budget reductions over the past 15 years, and we estimate councils have made nearly £25 billion of savings and efficiencies in their services in this period. To truly unlock the potential of local government, we also need meaningful devolution. Devolution which isn't just about transferring powers from Westminster, but giving councils the tools and resources to shape their places for the better. The launch of the White Paper today marks an important moment for local government, communities and our country. The LGA has long called for the devolution of powers to local places, and we want every council in England to be able to secure devolution that works for them, their local economies and their residents. While different areas will have strong views on what that should look like, genuine devolution of powers and resources can play a large role, whether that's in promoting inclusive economic growth, creating jobs and improving public services. In a very centralised country, moving funding and power from Whitehall to local leaders is really needed. But it must be done in a way where empowered councils and the communities they serve are at the heart of decision-making. Reforms in this White Paper will have a significant impact of every council and community. Our members are, and always have been, open to change. However, we remain clear that local government reorganisation should be a matter for councils and local areas to decide. And over the coming months, the LGA will be engaging proactively with all of our members as we look to respond fully to the White Paper. At the same time, we will closely monitor the bill and work with parliamentarians to ensure we get the best possible legislation on behalf of our members. In local government, we will continue working even more closely with mayors across the country as we look to strengthen those existing bonds for the benefits of our communities. Councillors and mayors, bring each unique strengths to the table to transform our communities. And I've seen the incredible work across England where councils and mayors are working hand in hand to drive development, build the homes we need, and boost transport infrastructure. These partnerships are proof that when we come together, we can build cohesive communities, attract investment, and deliver meaningful, sustainable change. However, as we consider the proposals further, it is important we acknowledge the mayoral model might not work in some places and geographies, and all councils should be able to choose their own path. As we move along on our devolution journey, local leaders and mayors will continue to collaborate, ensuring that every corner of England feels the benefit of our shared ambition to create the positive outcomes our communities deserve. And now it's my absolute pleasure to welcome Tracy Brabin, the Mayor of West Yorkshire, and I've had the privilege of working with Tracy over the last few years on Transport for the North and our Vision for the North, and now in my new role, working together to bring local government and mayoral combined authorities even closer together. Tracy is a passionate advocate for communities, she's a trailblazer for regional growth, and a true champion of equality and opportunity. Please join me in giving her a warm welcome, Tracy.
Thank you. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Louise. Thank you so much. Oh, wow. What a day. Welcome to Leeds. Welcome to West Yorkshire. And I hope we can all agree this is quite a moment for British politics. It's really something, we're feeling it as mayors, and I hope you feel that you're part of something pretty historic. And obviously, this is a point of devolution on the journey, and I think the seeds were sown in 1997 under a Labour government when we had devolution in Wales and Scotland and London. And then in 2009, Gordon Brown's Labour government passed the Local Democracy, Economic Development and Construction Act, which enabled the creation of the first combined authorities, first in Greater Manchester in 2011, then South Yorkshire, Liverpool City Region, the North East, and here in West Yorkshire in 2014. And obviously the creation of the mayors soon followed. And ever since, we have been proving that devolution works. And whether that is Andy becoming the first to take control of the buses for the first time in 40 years, the B network, and he is wearing the badge. It is an amazing achievement. Or Steve looking at how data and AI can transform public services. Or Oliver working with local partners to redesign how people who are ill are supported back into work. Or Sadiq, there you are, Sadiq, leading our global capital city, transforming its transport network and providing those vital free school meals for children. Or Ben, securing investment in offshore wind in the Tees Valley. Dan leading action on climate change, or Nick expanding higher education into cold spots within his region. And as more mayors have been elected, more areas are getting to see the benefits. So whether that's Kim, with your absolute laser focus on tackling child poverty, and David fighting hard to grow his rural economy, or Claire driving an inclusive growth strategy which will benefit the whole of the East Midlands, or Richard working with NHS partners to help more people, young people in particular, in the West Midlands to stay well. Mayors everywhere are making a huge difference. We are transforming how public services are delivered, improving the lives of people in towns and cities up and down the country. So it's quite appropriate that we're here in Nexus today, a fantastic example of how mayors, local government and universities are working together to drive growth in our places. but it's also because back in 2020, this is where the mayoral devolution paperwork was signed with Rishi Sunak. But thank you for everybody that was there then to get us to where we are now. But 2 years later, in 2022, it was my absolute pleasure to introduce Gordon Brown as he introduced his commission on the UK's future, setting out how a future Labour government would transform how the UK is governed. And today, aren't we coming full circle? With the launch of the English devolution white paper and a plan to widen devolution to the whole of England and deepen it where it's already been proven to be successful, it's an amazing moment for our country. Now, I know there's been a huge amount of work that's gone into getting us to this point, but we are hugely fortunate to have a Deputy Prime Minister who is so determined to get things done. Let's not forget, this is 5 months in the making, to change how England is governed, to back our mayors to grow our economies with more powers over skills and housing and transport, more freedoms, more flexibilities, to create those new jobs and opportunities, and fundamentally to put more money into people's pockets. Because if growth is the question, devolution is the answer. So it is my absolute pleasure to introduce to you my friend, Angela Rayner, our Deputy Prime Minister. Angela, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Tracy, and thanks, Louise, for your comments as well. And I'm absolutely delighted to be here with you today. It's a moment that I know many of us have been waiting for a long time. The turning point when people and places across England finally begin to take back control over the things that matter to them. When our proud towns and cities are given the powers they need to drive growth and raise living standards as part of this government's plan for change, I was delighted to stand alongside Keir as he announced our plan just over a week ago. It's a plan for putting more money in people's pockets, a plan for putting politics back in the service of working people, a plan for stability, investment and reform, not chaos, austerity and decline, and it's a plan that will deliver a decade of national renewal. Our devolution agenda is central to this, and to the first of our 5 missions to kickstart economic growth. We've already taken important steps towards this. We've taken tough decisions in the budget to stabilise the economy, preventing a return to austerity while protecting working people's pay slips and freeing up tens of billions of pounds of investment in Britain's future. We have established a national wealth fund and just last week announced reforms to our planning rules to get Britain's building and the 1.5 million homes that we need. And as we publish the English devolution white paper today, we are taking another step towards relighting the fire in our great regions. And our aim is to create an economy and a society that works for everyone. And by tapping into the incredible talent that exists in all parts of our country. And where better to be marking this milestone than here in Leeds, at the fantastic Nexus Innovation Hub, which brilliantly bridges the gap between business and academia. The backdrop here would have once been towering mills and chimneys, and now places like Leeds are proudly forging a future as bright as their industrial past. And in doing so, they're not just powering growth and better jobs in the communities, but as Gordon Brown argued so powerfully in this very place 2 years ago, they're also restoring faith in our democracy by once and for all putting the right powers in the right places. And Leeds is not alone on this journey. Just look at what our amazing mayors have been up to here today and what they have already achieved. A multi-billion-pound 10-year growth plan in West Yorkshire with Tracy. She didn't mention that when she mentioned all the other mayors. Oxford Street regeneration in London with Sadiq. Publicly owned battery trains in Liverpool with Steve. Buses under local control in Greater Manchester with Andy, lots more with Andy, I know, he's my mayor, I'm biased. Opportunities for unemployed young people in the West Midlands with Richard. New clean energy jobs in the East Midlands with Claire. North Yorkshire on a path to be England's first carbon negative region with David. The investment zone in Tees Valley, turbocharging the digital creative sectors with Ben. Families supported out of poverty in the North East with Kim. And nature recovering in the west of England with Dan. And a health-led employment programmes in South Yorkshire with Oliver. These achievements are proof that we must go further than ever. And through our devolution reforms today, we will back our mayors to deliver even more. And it's about time. For all the promises about levelling up, after 14 years of chaos and decline, our regions are more divided than ever. That's what happens when you spend a decade pitting communities against each other. Now the foundations of a good life are crumbling, and it's no wonder. Our country is the most centralised in Europe, with too many decisions affecting too many people made by too few. And in micromanaging by central government and short-term sticky plaster politics, and you've got a doom loop of real problems going unaddressed in Britain's regions. And there's huge potential that's unrealised. The last Labour government paved the way for the London Mayor, the Scottish Parliament and the Welsh Senate, and the Northern Ireland Assembly, with the great John Prescott laying the groundwork for the devolution model we know today. But under the Conservatives, devolution has often meant that creating a patchwork of individual deals benefiting some parts of the country, while other parts have missed out. Well, no more. With our plan for change, we're turning the page on an economy that hoards potential and a politics that hoards power. It's time for a completely new way of governing, one that unites public and private sectors at all levels of government, business and unions, and the whole of civil society in a shared purpose. And we're serious about this. Within days of the election, one of the first things the Prime Minister and I did was welcome the England mayors to Downing Street. We can't bring about the change and the national renewal that we were elected to deliver without them. That's why I'm wasting no time in handing more powers and the skills for those people with skin in the game to drive real sustained change for every region. Devolution will no longer be agreed by the whim of a minister in Whitehall. It will now be default in our constitution. We're moving away from an ad hoc system and towards a simpler and more ambitious framework for devolution. We will make it clear which powers go with which type of authority. We will bring new efficiency and accountability to local and regional government. And we will truly empower the local champions who understand their area, its identity, its strengths, and how to harness them. It sounds simple, but it's never been done. But ultimately, our aim is mayoral devolution over areas of genuine strategic scale, and to create strategic authorities as a new tier of local government to give our cities and regions a bigger voice. And now I understand that devolution is a journey, and some will need time to decide the course they wish to follow, and we will give local leaders time and space to do this. But our ambition is clear. We want to fill the map with devolution. Our manifesto pledged to give everyone access to devolved power. So I will legislate for a new power of ministerial directive which will allow central government to knock heads together and create strategic authorities when local leaders cannot agree. And as well as broadening devolution across England, we're also deepening it. Today I'm announcing unprecedented new powers for mayors, equipping them with stronger levers to drive growth in their communities. Mayors will be hardwired into the fabric of how we govern and will lead the way on house building, transport skills and more. Too often, mayors' hands are tied by Whitehall, even when it comes to allocating their own budgets. So we will create a clear and transparent route for all mayoral combined authorities to receive an integrated settlement. This means moving resources between projects that matches what their people need. We will give mayors new powers over strategic planning and new call-in powers so that they can build the homes we need and plan for growth on a larger scale. And we will get mayors working more closely with Homes England to unlock new homes. The most mature areas will be able to set the strategic direction of any future affordable homes programme. We will devolve future funding to support regeneration and housing delivery. And we will consolidate adult skills funding, introducing joint ownership of the local skills improvement plan and new routes to influence 16 to 19 provision. And we will devolve funding to support economically inactive people into work. And funding for retrofit will be included in the integrated settlements by the end of the Parliament. We will also create a statutory role for mayors in governing the rail network, with a right to request on rail devolution. This all means easier commutes across more joined-up transport links, new homes properly connected to local infrastructure and skills provision that matches local job opportunities. But we're not stopping there. We are also going to integrate police and crime commissioner functions and strengthen their role in integrated care systems. We will give local people more of a say over what matters to them by strengthening protections for cherished local community assets and high streets. And we are fixing the foundations of local government through reform, fairer funding and responsible stewardship, including through multi-year funding settlements, ending the farcical bidding wars for ring-fence funding pots. And we will facilitate a bold programme of unitarisation, creating simpler, sustainable structures and more accountable politicians. On top of this, Whitehall won't interfere unnecessarily in local decision-making. There is really no good reason for ministers to sign off cattle grids or new cycle lanes. We have an economy that hoards potential and a politics that hoards power. So our devolution revolution will deliver the greatest transfer of power from Whitehall to our communities in a generation, empowering those communities to realise their potential. No other government has been this ambitious about devolution. A mission that binds all departments across government. A long-term mission over generations rather than a short-term fix. It's about change at every level that will give communities the tools to shape their future and give councils the certainty to plan, prioritise and move from crisis management to prevention. That will give mayors accountable local leaders, single-mindedly focused on delivering for local people, real powers to drive growth and higher living standards. Change that people can see and feel in their lives. Change that taps into the huge potential and pride that's not just here in Leeds, but in every part of our country. And change that puts politics back in the service of working people. This is our plan for change, and together, this is what we will deliver. Thank you.
Wow. This is quite a moment. You'll be able to tell your grandchildren you were here. You were here on this day. Okay, folks, so we're going to have the opportunity to have about 9 questions. So I'm going to cluster them in groups of 3. I'm trying to get journalists and stakeholders as well. So if you want to ask a question, please just raise your hand. And if you say your name and where you're from, that'd be grand. Great stuff. Okie dokie. So at the back, is it Rob? Yes. Great stuff. I'll take you first then, Rob. Rob, if you introduce yourself, Rob.
Hello, Deputy Prime Minister. I'm Rob Parsons from the Northern Agenda newsletter. Can I ask you about post-16 education? We heard this weekend that mayors in the North would like to have more powers and funding to influence their local education systems. I haven't had a chance to read the full white paper yet, but I gather that there isn't too much of that in there. You've promised devolution by default. How does that work if mayors are wanting powers that you're not necessarily willing to hand over?
Thank you so much, Rob. And then, is it Jane there? Jane? There's a mic just then.
Thank you. Councillor Jane Scullion, leader of Calderdale Council. Some of us are already taking the plunge into devolution here in West Yorkshire, and it's true, we are stronger together, and I'm glad that the rest of the country are going to have some taste of that. But we wonder what's next for combined authorities like ours in terms of developing and maturing the powers that we have. And I suppose the second thing is, when I'm asked on the doorstep, what does this devolution mean in terms of money in my pocket? What's the very simple and straightforward answer?
Super. And Jen?
Hi, thanks. I think quite a few of the mayors that were involved in discussions around the white paper were keen to see some form of fiscal devolution. I think tourism tax was one of the levers that was mentioned and that was talked about. Doesn't look like that's in there. My sense is that people are not entirely happy about that. Does that mean that the door is closed to this for the duration of this Parliament? And connected to that, are you confident that mayoral combined authorities have got the capacity and the institutional strength, robustness to be able to deliver what you need them to deliver? Thank you.
Thank you. So post-16, what does it mean for people and fiscal?
Thank you. I mean, there's kind of a theme here of, well, that's great, but we want more, which is even better. And it is evolution as well as revolution. And you've seen that some areas where we've got combined authorities have gone much further because they've been able to do that, and we want to push that. And this white paper and the bill that we'll be putting forward will be a default for devolution. So Whitehall would have to give a good excuse as to why they wouldn't give those areas the devolution. And we want to make sure that we do that, whether it's the post-16 skills or any other element. I think Jem mentioned around tourism tax. That's not in the devolution paper. But there is more, the council tax, mayoral levy, for example, there's more flexibility within that so that mayors can have more power and control over what money they've got and how they spend it. And having a mayor, and I think it comes to Jane's point around combined authorities, what's next is by having more control on a geographical level around transport, skills, housing, so many of those things are interlocking. And the frustration, and I was talking to Andy before, I remember giving him a right old bad time when I was a home helper and a care worker, and my frustration at the time was politicians in Whitehall, they just didn't know what was going on the ground. It felt really clunky, and you'd have one thing happening over here and another thing happening over there. By having a place-based approach within a combined authority gives you that uplift to really tackle some of the challenges. But I would say some of the brilliant opportunities that our areas can deliver. I'm sick of it being talked down like we're a drag. No, we're not. We've got a distinctiveness about us. We've got things that we can deliver. We've got areas that we're proud of, industries that we came from, that actually by allowing people in with skin in the game, combining together and having that ability, I think that that will strengthen us. And I think it's how we deliver the growth. And Jen, I think that, again, on capacity, we've put within the framework that we will support capacity. We'll do secondments as well to make sure that we can build that capacity. And I have never seen a more collaborative group. Scary, actually, because I don't know what you call it, but I call them a pride of mayors, because they are sharing information with each other and working collaboratively to deliver for those areas. And that's what I want to see other areas. So again, the white paper talks about our direction of travel. I want to take people with us, but I want to have a council of mayors. I want to have someone round the table for your area that we can devolve more and we can deliver that collaboration, which will truly give us that growth across all areas. So I think what's next is we build on it. I think the challenge for us is this white paper and the bill is a real game changer. It's a game changer for our country.
It's about us building on that and showing and demanding, and I'm pretty certain the mayors I've got already are going to demand more, and quite rightly so, but then making sure that that works and we show that. And I'm sure that where the combined authorities are already working, I'm sure that you're already seeing the delivery, whether it's on healthcare, on education or skills, but I'm really excited about what I think this can deliver for areas. As someone who grew up in the north of England, I just see the potential. And I see a lot of, as a constituency MP, I meet more of my talent from my constituency in London than I do in my constituencies, because far too often they say they've had to move because the jobs aren't there. Well, we can build those jobs in all parts and all regions of our country, and devolution, I think, is a way of us delivering that growth and those opportunities for everyone, no matter where they grew up in England.
Thank you. And I think I was told that a collection of mayors is a munificence. I like that. That works for me. Thank you. Thank you for that, Angie. And certainly every part of everyone's life should be touched by devolution, whether that's affordable housing, whether that's connected, integrated transport, whether that's skills, whether that's opportunities into work and learning. So we're hoping, Jane, that everybody's lives will be touched by devolution. Okay, so more questions. Yes, at the back, the gentleman in the jacket. Yeah. That's you. Thank you.
Thank you. Kamal Jaffer from the Daily Mail. Could you shed more light on whether this move will mean that all local elections next May will still go ahead? And if not, what's your message to voters who might feel their democratic right is being taken away? It seems quite contrary to the spirit of putting more power in local people's hands.
Thank you. Yes.
Thank you. Hello. Victoria Hill's Royal Town Planning Institute. There's lots going on in the world of planning reform at the moment. The question is, how quickly before we can see those strategic planning powers coming in across the cities and regions to really get things going? Thank you.
Okay, and then one more at the back. Yeah, there you go. Thank you. I'm so sorry. Yes. If you want to stand. Thank you.
Tamara Cohen, Sky News. In the light of the revelations this weekend about the alleged Chinese spy, do you think UK politicians have failed to be vigilant enough about the threat from Chinese influence in all aspects of public life? And if I may quickly, on your announcement today, you're proposing getting rid of swathes of smaller district councils. Do you see them as blockers to economic growth?
Thank you so much. If I may just say about the question about China, it feels like that's a million miles away from what we're discussing today and what feels very important to the people in the room. And I'm sure government spokespeople have spoken about it this morning. But we've got local elections, smaller councils, and how quickly can we get those strategic plans out?
Okay, so local elections, we're not looking at delaying local elections, and we're not setting that would be the agenda. What we want to see is collaboration and local government reform. If that means that they're further down and we get to that decision quickly because they're halfway down that local government reform, then that would be something that would come from the bottom up. But that's not something that we're planning on doing from central government. In terms of the town planning, strategic planning, how quickly some of that will be in the devolution bill, but people are already collaborating and I'm pushing that. We've got Homes England, I'm working with Homes England and saying I want you to work with mayors, I want you to work with local authorities. I've said as part of the new National Planning Policy Framework that local authorities should come together to meet their new mandatory targets if they want to. I'm pushing collaboration. The one thing, and I hinted at it when I got political in my speech, the one thing that really frustrated me about the previous government was they pitted areas against each other. We're not in competition. You know, Leeds is Leeds, Manchester's Manchester. We're not a football club. You know, we can have a bit of rivalry, but ultimately we've got a distinct identity, and local authorities working together and mayors working together actually brings out the best in us. So instead of pitting areas against each other, I think working together is the right way. So strategic planning will be delivered through devolution bill, but also through the MPPF, and we're already doing some work to make sure that that happens. Now, Sky News, you've got a question with me later. If you want to ask me about national issues there, I'll let you do that, but I'm going to stick with your district councils for the people that have come to this event. And I don't think district councils are blockers. That's not what I'm trying to achieve. What I'm trying to achieve is scale. working with people. So looking at how we can have a place-based approach, because in areas, in towns and in rural areas, in different parts of the world, you don't stop at the council border. Nobody talks in council borders. I mean, my local area hasn't even recognised the Local Government Act of 74. We're Droylsden, we're Ashton, we're Failsworth, we're Ardenshire. We don't even call ourselves Tameside. So people don't stop at their border. You know, many people work and travel amongst, and their healthcare is beyond their border, their jobs are beyond their border of whether it's a district council or a metropolitan. So having that joined up approach and working towards how you scale up that support, whether it's through growth or transport or health, I think is a really important push to say to people, let's go on this journey together, let's recognise where things are not working, and let's have a government, let's have a Secretary of State who wants to work with you. That's my big point in what I'm trying to say as part of this. It's working with you. I'm not going to criticise and condemn people and say it's my way or the highway. I want to work with people to deliver, because I know that whether you're sitting on a district council, whether you're a leader of a metropolitan council, whether you're a mayor or whether you're a politician, you want what's best for the people you were there to represent. So we've got a common aim there, so let's work together to deliver it, because the old system hasn't worked. We've seen the inequality grow and the frustrations of people. So let's try something different and work together to deliver it.
I think that's really well said, particularly about the borders. And in the white paper, you mentioned the Great North and the northern mayors coming together to solve some of those big, huge problems, whether that's energy or trade and investment. In January, Oliver, David and I are signing the White Rose Agreement for Yorkshire. We'll soon have the fourth bit of the jigsaw, and all of Yorkshire will have mayors. It's an amazing opportunity for that collaboration, that cross-border problem solving. So it's very exciting to see that in there. Okay, some more questions. I did see James Vincent at the back. James, do you have a question? James, go for it.
James Vincent from BBC Look North. We've had mayors for about a decade now. It's sometimes quite hard to explain to people exactly what they do and necessarily who they are. What's the evidence that you're basing this on that they are working? Sorry, mayors, but what's the evidence that you're basing all this on? Are mayors working?
You're off my Christmas card list, that's for sure. And then there was someone, oh, sorry, I'll come to this side. Yes, please.
Thank you very much. You've mentioned transport, and obviously we've got mayors here delivering transport connections in their areas. We represent the Urban Transport Group, working with mayors and their colleagues across the city regions. What role does transport and I guess the many acts and powers that you're transferring going to play in your economic growth mission and the various other missions? Thank you very much.
And thank you for all that you do. It's incredible the work that you do, Urban Transport Group. Yes. Just behind.
Thank you. Nikki Chance-Thompson from the PSOL. I'm also Tracy's Deputy Chair for Culture in West Yorkshire. Just really a question for culture, arts and heritage. This is a sector that's really in quite a lot of peril due to the cost of living crisis. And really my question is how devolution will help support the sector and enable it really to sustain, thrive and grow. It brings so many benefits from an economic perspective, but also well-being, which I think people really need at this difficult time.
Thank you. So evidence about do mayors work, how do we make sure transport works connected, and creative industries and culture.
Thank you. I don't think that's working yet. Shall I go up here?
Yeah.
Is that my font? Or you'll put it on any second now? Very good at it. There you
Very
go.
good.
Voila. Ta-da. So, James, in terms of your point, I think the evidence is there that mayors are working. If you look at the growth and where mayors are, where they've been established, the real impact that's had. If you look at the transport and connectivity, I would say, and I said it in my speech, one of the things that comes back to us from the mayors is actually, yeah, we're doing great things, but we could do so much more. There's a frustration with the mayors, especially those mayors that have been the trailblazers, in saying, I could do so much more. Why are you deciding the employment? How are you deciding what the jobs are? We know who the jobs are. We know where the skills are. We know who the employers are. We know what the health benefits would be. Why are you stopping us? So you've got to join it all up, and then you get the real potential of areas and the billions of pounds of potential that we can unlock with this devolution is incredible. Not only will that give better outcomes for people in those areas, but it will truly unlock the potential so that we meet our growth target nationally. And we're very clear on that in the government, that we won't unless we're working within our regions and sub-regions with the councils and with mayors across the area. So I do think it is working, but I think it could work even better, and that's what this paper is about. And it goes on to the transport connections as well, because again, you know, in local areas, and Andy will talk to you for a very lengthy time about the problems that we found in Manchester. You can get people in and out of Manchester, but you want to go around my patch and go around to Lisa and Andy's patch, it's a nightmare. So Andy knows that, and so do our local councils, having more control over it. He knows where my constituents are trying to get to, where the jobs are, and he knows how to build that and connect it up. So devolving more around rail and being able to do what Sadiq's able to do, because he has the powers, in London. Look, I go to London every week and I go to Manchester every week. I want London's transport system. If I wait longer than 5 minutes for a tram, I'm getting like really itchy. I'll wait 40 minutes for one in Manchester. That's why Andy's desperate to make sure that we can make that change, and that's important. It touches on economic growth, it touches on opportunity missions, it touches on ending violence, halving violence against women and girls. There's so many things it touches on in terms of our national missions. And culture again, and I think this is really important about identity. And far too often, people don't always understand the significance of something in their local area. That's why we're giving more powers for community assets and CPO powers, and also about how we can see the benefit, not just in terms of, and Tracy's a good example of that, because she talks about the arts, and she wants to bring it to every single person in her area, but the well-being, the price of what that means to be who you are, a part of your identity of an area, the well-being of the area. So people local skin in the game understand that more. They get what it means to their area. Steve's on to me about issues in his area, what it means to be part of where he's from and how important assets are in his area. So I think giving more powers and more control to mayors and being able to protect those assets, and also then see the benefits that that brings to the area, the identity of the area, but also the well-being of the people there. I think somebody in Whitehall doesn't necessarily understand that.
Thank you so much, Deputy Prime Minister. Unfortunately, we've run out of time. Thank you. Just to say, obviously, there's still some...